we're going over today is something I've seen for quite some time, and I did a little bit of research, and it's regarding my ethnicity of the Latin culture, at least in America. Maybe around other worlds it's different. Maybe around other parts of the world, it's the numbers are slightly higher, lower. I don't know, but you know, Latin folk like myself account for about 19% of the population as of 2021. The number has probably risen because based on some information that I saw, and I could show it popping up on screen, is that since 2010, Hispanics or Latin folks have been the sole reason for population growth in America. 50%. We love to have kids, don't we? Um, and coming from that culture, and maybe even if you're in different culture, this might seem familiar to you. And if you're not, I'm pretty sure you have a friend who's Latin. You probably know a friend from school or something because we everywhere. I was curious to see when it comes to Latin people, like how many of us make over a six-figure salary, and I look at that because to me that's what success is right now, financially at least, because that gives you enough money to live. It gives you enough money to invest, save, um, still have fun, still be part of the economic machine and buy things and have a car, right? You at least have a lot of the basics and even some nice to haves around with 100K. So to me, that's a good place to be. And I was looking and I couldn't find individual data. I only could find household data. And if you know, like in Latinos, usually there's not a, there's rarely a single family, husband, wife, maybe a kid or two. It's usually husband, wife, maybe one of the moms live there, maybe an aunt lives there, maybe a cousin lives there. We're very communal people, which I really like, but that skews the data a little bit because if you have two incomes, three incomes in a household, you're definitely going to hit 100K. Um, so I couldn't find that data. But what I've noticed is that a lot of Latin families, and again, I'm coming from my culture, and what I've experienced and seeing friends and what they experience. I'm going at a lens of what I seen growing up, what I still currently see when it comes to my friends, and maybe what we could do after. And this may still apply to you. And that is the fact that a lot of the time, Latin families, especially if you're first or second generation, have been in America, they tend to guilt trip you and pull you back down. How do they do this? Well, we are still communal people, which is a very positive thing. Like being very family oriented, being wanting to support the family. Like that's how we grow up. I grew up in a gigantic family, and I saw how my mom would support my aunts, or like how my aunts would support my mom, especially with single mother with kids. Like that happens a lot throughout these families. And I'm grateful for that because I was able to grow up um, with different aunties and some uncles, and my cousins were my best friends. Like, I really enjoy that versus I've seen, single children. Like, I've known friends that are just the only child, don't have a big family. They're very, it's hard for them to make like really close acquaintances, or it's really tough for them to probably be with someone with a gigantic family, and it can be a little overwhelming. If you have a big family, at least you know how to make friends. It's easy to be around people because you got so used to that growing up, which is my case. Although, if you allow it, they will not take advantage of you because they probably don't know that they're doing that. They just think like, oh, you're maybe the successful one in the family. Maybe you've made it. you did a little bit of college and you got a good job, or you just hustled your way, created your own business. These are actual people that I know and have done this. And the family now comes to you for everything. You know, growing up, a lot of my family was on government assistance. Some of them are still on that government assistance today. Some of them warranted. They have sicknesses that don't unfortunately prevent them from working, and some just take advantage of the system. I'm not gonna lie, which is why I'm kind of against that, and I'm a kind of stringent when it comes to that. At least my views on government assistance and help. I think we need more accountability in that department. Anyway, I think you become that person. And when I first started to work, for instance, I helped my mom a lot. I was paying bills at 15, for instance. And I remember, like, from reading books and thinking through things, I knew that I needed a season to be on my own. I needed a season to build my own stuff. I couldn't help everyone when I could barely help myself. Being 15 to 16, making minimum wage in New York City, and trying to get around New York City, trying to go to college and pay my way through that, and pay my own little bills that I have for my cell phone or whatever. I was helping my mom out with certain bills too, and just living paycheck to paycheck. Uh, at one point, I was like, I need to stop. I need to stop. I need to say no. I need to have my own thing so that I can build my life. Which is why I moved out when I was 21, because that gives distance. And as much as I love my family, I can love them from a distance. And I helped occasionally when I can, when I could, whether I was like buying groceries and helping there, but I stopped paying bills. I was like, sorry, like if your cable gets cut off, your cable gets cut off. That's a nice to have anyway. And you got to hustle. Like, that's what we all do. And that was my experience getting out and being on my own solo trip and going back to specific schools, getting certifications, and just building myself up so I can do well and make a good living and become successful in my own way. I was lucky to not have all my family reach out and try to ask for support and everything. So there's that. But I know people who have that happen to them, and they give countless dollars to family, and their family either does not pay them back or gets them into debt, which happened to me. And you have to handle that because now it's your responsibility. If you put your name on a credit card and you give it to a family member and you say, hey, or this is for emergency purposes, and they rack up, close to $4,000 on that card and never pay it because they keep losing their job. Real story, by the way. You have to deal with that responsibility. So, and I'm sure this is not only when it comes to Latin families, it probably just happens with big families in general. And you trying to be a good steward and be that support system kind of pushes you down on the ladder of success, whether you're trying to build your own business or you're trying to rise up in your own career. Sometimes it can bring you down. And what I had to do, for instance, and my recommendation is like love from distance, set boundaries, be okay with saying no, even if they're even if they're really dealing with something. Provide perspective if they listen. Send them resources. I worked at a nonprofit where, I mean, this is gonna get intense and extreme of it, but this is what I had to do. I worked at a place that offered resources and like jobs, rehoming, those kinds of services in New York City for people who have been incarcerated or drug abusers and had to go to like rehab and stuff, and they were just getting out and they were clean, and we would pretty much help them get back into society. This and with that service, because I was like the outreach person, I was the only outreach person in that company. a lot of where I went was helping people in shelters, helping people from these places. And for me, I started to really learn what a city like New York and most other cities offer in terms of services to help people. It's really hard to be homeless, by the way. Like, it's really hard. There's so many services out there to support you and get you back on your feet, um, that it's pretty overwhelming, actually. I've visited a lot of places, and it's tough. It's something, pride becomes a big deal here. But I learned through that, like, hey, the worst is going to get is that you have to come to one of these services, these offices, and get the help you need to get you homing, and then help you get a job, help you with government assistance for a short while you get your stuff together. Churches, you know, churches help a lot if you're religious. It's a great place to go and seek support in many ways. They usually have a money. All your donations actually go to good things if you go to the right church. They support people who are struggling with stuff. So I was like, okay, so I'm gonna back off and do my own thing. The worst that can happen is that they get evicted from a house, or I'm talking some intense stuff like that, and you're like, hey, there are resources. If I give you money, you're not gonna learn your lesson. That's the truth. I would want someone to do that to me because I would need to learn. I can't just be like, please help me. It's like, oh, well, I'm going to still ask for help. Some people may be supportive, but I'm going to make sure I never get into that situation again. Work hard for that. And that's what happened. I've asked for support and people have helped me. They continue to help me to this day when I've had really tough times, but it's not constant. See, there's a difference between consistency of seeing that and being like, it's been years and you still haven't learned your lesson. You're still asking for money. You're still doing this. You're still doing that. There is where, I can be compassionate, but at the same time, I have to set a boundary. I have to make sure that person learns and then keep my distance because they will pull you down. And that tends to happen in these big families like that. So it's like love from a distance. Here are the resources you can utilize. I'm not going to give you crazy money unless you're absolutely starving. I still won't give you money. I'll send you some DoorDash, um, because it's like, how can I trust you? This is what you've done with money in the past. This is what I've seen. This is what I've heard. So in this case, I'll give you money. I'll buy the food for you and send it your way. Just tell me what you want. Things like that. That's what I've done in the past with certain family members. So it's hard. It's tough to set those boundaries, but if you want to get somewhere, especially being from a family that might use you as a crutch, or you may use them as a crutch, it's like that crutch is there when you absolutely need it, but that shouldn't happen often because of the world we live in, is especially if you live in America. Um, there's a lot of systems to support you, and government things to help you get you back on your feet if you really hit rock bottom. You just have to seek it. You just have to be smart. The internet's everywhere. You can get on the internet in a cafe with your free phone nowadays. So really, there's no excuse for people to, not do that. Anyway, okay, this video is going a little bit long, so I'm gonna cut it there. What are your thoughts? I know it's pretty intense. It's pretty out there, but this is from my own experience, what I've seen from friends, family, and seeing it from the ground. The data probably proves otherwise, but I wasn't able to find that individual household data, on finances. So, what is your experience if you're Latin? Uh, what has been what has been itching you or challenging you, or have you set boundaries? Has that been difficult for you? I'd love to know. Until tomorrow.